Shikasha Saya. My name is Amy, and I'm a member of the Chickasaw Nation. And I'd like to thank you for having us here. We've been here, I've been coming for about 6 years now, and this is one of the nicest festivals with the kindest people and the most beautiful scenery around, really. Before we start, I always kind of give a little mini talk about the dress, because I go all over the country and I educate about Southeastern culture, and a lot of times I'll show up and they'll say, "Oh, there's going to be a native storyteller here." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Are you Pioneer? Are you Laura Ingalls?" I've been asked if I'm Mormon, been asked if I'm Amish, because a lot of times when people think of native people, they think of feathers and leather and beads and hides and things like that. And of course, prior to European contact, we were big weavers. Our women wove huge skirts and they wore hides in the winter and things like that. However, we met the Europeans, and it's a lot easier to sew a dress than to hunt for one. A lot easier to sew than catch your clothes. And then we also wear these because this is the fashion that people were wearing on the Trail of Tears. And so we wear these clothing, they're Trail of Tear dresses, to honor and to remember our ancestors who did not survive the journey, and also to honor the ancestors who did survive so that we could have our cultures and our customs and we could go on as a living, thriving culture. So that's what we wear, our Trail of Tear dresses. And like I said, I'm not Laura Ingalls, although I get asked that a whole lot. Oh, goodness, it's kind of sticky. I was going to also share with you too, you know, coming up here and driving through, most of you don't realize that you're speaking the Chickasaw people, Choctaw, Creek, Alabama Coshada, things like that. We all speak Muskogean dialects. And most of you are speaking Muskogean all the time around here and you have no idea. Like when you say Tuscaloosa, it should be Tuscaloosa. When you see Lusa on the end of something, it means black. It's telling you something is black, whether it's the air, the water, the dog, the cat, something is black. Tuscaloosa, black warrior. If you say Oklahoma, Homa means red. It's telling you something is red. So you're talking about red man, red people. A lot of the words around here, and the biggest one that you guys have messed up, and I'd appreciate it if you could help me fix it, is the Spanish came and they said to us, "What do you call this river?" And the Europeans said, "What do you call this beautiful river?" And we said, "Misa Sapokni." It means older than time or without beginning. We felt the river was so large, it was without start. And they said, "Mississippi." And it has been Mississippi ever since. So next time you hear somebody say, "I'm going down Mississippi," you say, "Excuse me, it's Misa Sapokni." And we'd really appreciate that. All right, let's see. What story shall I share with you tonight? The first story I'm going to tell you is about Flint. Now, everybody knows when Native Americans were hunting with bows and arrows, they were napping flint to make the arrow points and the spear points and the things like that. But what you may not know is how Flint got here. Now, when Abba Banili, when the Creator created the world, he made all of the animals first. They came first. And then we came along. And the animals felt kind of sorry for us. They were like, they're these two-legged things, they're not very fast, they're not very strong, they're not very fierce. You know, they're kind of soft. And we're going to have to help them out. So they spoke to us and they taught us how to find food and how to clothe ourselves and how to create a home and a shelter. And we all got around great, except the people reproduced very quickly. And pretty soon there were more and more people, and people get hungry, and they have to be fed. And the people had discovered up at the top of a mountain, there was a huge gray man, an ogre of a fellow, very angry. And he would come in and out of the mountainside, and anytime he came out, if he took a nap, the two legs would run out with a rock, and they would bang him on the elbow, or on the ear, or on the nose, and part of him would break off. And they would grab it, run back, they would nap the flint into arrow points, and they began to hunt the animals and eat the animals. And the animals, for some reason, had quite a problem with this idea. They're like, you know, we taught you guys how to feed yourselves, how to clothe yourselves, and now you're eating us. Not good. So at that point, the animals quit communicating with us. They said, we will no longer speak and give you our secrets. And supposedly when we all come back into harmony and balance, they'll speak to us again. Now they called a meeting and all the animals got together. And they said, what are we going to do about these people? About the Hatak, the people? Because they keep coming out and they keep hunting us. And we can't stop them. And Nito the bear was in attendance, and he said, I don't know. And Ossi the eagle and Chukfi, all the animals were there. And each one could really come up with no idea. And Chukfi, our trickster, he kind of sat back and listened, and he piped up and he said, you know, if it was up to me, I'd just go up the top of the hill and I'd kill Flint. Once you take him out of the picture, they can't hunt. And the animal said, really? And he said, yeah, I'd just walk right up there and I'd just kill him. And they said, okay. And he said, what? And they said, yeah, you just go right on up the hill. Just right, go. And take care of it. Take care of Flint. Well, Chukfi knew that he was in trouble. And as he's walking up that hill, he's thinking, I'm this big. I have little tiny teeth and little tiny claws, and this guy is huge. He's a monster. But he kept going and he kept going, and finally he gets to the top of the mountain and he thinks, I'm just going to knock on the door and I'm going to see what happens. I have no idea where to go. So he goes and he taps on the door lightly and nothing. And he gets a little braver and nothing. And finally and the door flies open and you hear, not the what? And he says, Mr. Flint, hi, I'm Chukfi. And Flint stared at him and he said, what? What do you want? And he says, I just thought I'd visit. Now, by our culture, if someone comes to visit, you ask them in and you feed them and you take care of them. But Flint just stared. And Chukfi realized he wasn't getting in. So he thought, Mr. Flint, you're a big guy. You like to eat? He said, yeah. He said, if you come to my house tomorrow, I'm the best cook in all the area. I will cook for you the best food. You will, it'll just be a celebration that you'll never forget. Come on, come on. And Flint said, I don't know. You know, every time I leave my house, there's these little guys. And they bang me on the elbow and the ankle and my toe, and I don't know. Chukfi says, no, come to my house. It'll be fine. So Flint says, tomorrow. And Chukfi runs down the hill to his house and he begins to cook and gather things and work, and he gets wild onion and egg, and he gets mixed fry bread and grape dumplings, and he gathers honeycomb, and he gets all the traditional things and makes these huge feast. And the next day he starts hearing Flint coming down the mountain. Boom, 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 boom. And it gets louder and louder, and finally it's a door, and he bangs on the door, and Chukfi opens it. He says, Minty, come in. And Flint's so large, he has to squat down, and he puts his head through and one shoulder, and he kind of pulls, and he gets his other shoulder, and he pulls, and pretty soon he shimmies, and he gets a leg in, and he gets another leg in, and he sits down with his two legs running the length of a long table, and his head bent against the ceiling, and he begins to eat. And he begins to eat, and Chukfi keeps bringing it, and and then Chukfi gets a long stick, and he stands in the corner, and he gets a little knife, and he starts sharpening the end of the stick. And he's sharpening it and working. And Flint says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm just busy. I just have to stay busy all the time, keep my hands busy. And Flint began to eat, and he ate more and more and more. And finally, he had eaten until he'd hit that Thanksgiving tired, you know. And he said, I've got to go home. I've got to go sleep. And Chukfi said, no, just a little nap. Take one here, it's fine. So Flint kind of pushed the table back and he slid down, and pretty soon Chukfi began to hear. And he got closer and he said, hey, Flint. A little closer, he said, hey, Flint. He said, hey, Flint. And as Flint began to snore, his stomach began to rise and fall and rise and fall. And Chuckfee climbed up on top of him with his little spear. And he stood back. And it almost looked like he was surfing. You know, I mean, that stomach was going up and down, and this little rabbit was riding it. And he raised that spear up, and when he brought it down, he hit Mr. Flint right here in the solar plexus. And Flint exploded. He flew into millions of pieces, blew the roof off of the house. He rained down into the fields and the forest and the creek beds, raining and raining. The table was knocked over. Chuckfee got behind the table and he kept his head down and he kept hearing Flint fall and fall and fall. And finally, he thought, it's done. And right as he lifted his head above the edge of the table, the last piece of Flint fell from the sky and slit his nose right down the middle. And to this day, when you see any of his descendants, they'll have a little line that runs right down the middle of their nose, and it reminds them to keep their nose in their own business. And that's how Flint got here.